That flag, the flag back there on the wall, and the flag in City Hall are all against Michigan State Penal Code.
They're against what?
Michigan State Penal Code 750-245.
This is saying, talking about defacing the American flag?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These aren't American flags, these are thin blue line flags.
Those are American flags with a design on them.
Huh?
Those are American flags with a design on them.
No, those are thin blue line flags. American flags are red, white, and blue.
Yeah, those are American flags, but they have a design attached to them that is not the American flag.
You know, there's a flag in Africa that looks pretty much just like ours. Is that violating our policy?
I don't know yet. Today, I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request.
Because I have one in my yard.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You're acting as a private citizen then. And that is a public space.
You're saying they should not be allowed to sell them here because it's in the
Do they
Supreme
sell them
Court.
here?
Really? I think you can buy them here.
Okay.
Where I bought mine, my friend.
Okay.
You gotta buy them somewhere. They don't give
True.
them away.
Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close public comment and move to the approval of the consent agenda. And this evening, we do have the minutes from our regular meeting on the 7th of September.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Councilmember Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes?
Ellenboss?
Yes.
Mayor Filkins?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, Marcus, the next thing on our agenda is a FOIA appeal, so I'll turn it to you and Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. We have a FOIA appeal this evening from Mr. Beaudry with respect to the request for the waiver of a fee. The city attorney will provide a brief explanation regarding the circumstances being asked with respect to the waiver of the fee as well as our recommendation. Following that, it would be an opportunity, if council so desires, to provide Mr. Beaudry with an opportunity to address the City Council. Following that, certainly any questions or discussion by council prior to making your final consideration regarding the appeal would be appropriate. So, Mike, if I could kick it to you.
Sure. So we provided the city a memo on this issue. I suspect that you've received it all. This is a fee appeal. Basically, it's broken down into three different sections, if you will. One is that the city failed to identify the nature of the high costs to charge time for the search, and that the city cannot require that the fees be paid up front after a request is granted, and the city must fulfill the request by delivering the documents before the fee can be applied. Hopefully you've read that email. We don't believe, at least in our opinion, that there's merit to any of the grounds raised for the appeal. Certainly, the city has the authority and the ability to waive those fees if it desires, but, this is often the case where we have individuals who request public records and for whatever purpose they want to use those for, and without charging the fee, that simply means that staff time and other public resources, tax dollars, are used to fulfill those requests for what essentially may be some other purpose or private purpose for that. So we've made a recommendation in that memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay,
And the recommendation was to not grant the.
to deny it, to deny it. Okay, Mr. Bodry, is he here? Okay, would you like to say anything? You have to come up to the podium if you do, and your time will be limited to 6 minutes, please.
I would like to ask how the city could find no merit in the first section you cited. The law specifically states that the nature of the high costs, and in this instance, the high cost is $28. The city gave me an itemized deduction form. That form has a specific spot so that you can follow the law and identify the nature of those circumstances in which the city has found that there are high costs that are unreasonable. And the city failed to fill out that portion of the itemized deduction or detailed itemization form.
Okay, this period of time is just for you to share your thoughts.
Okay.
There won't be any discussion with you.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks. Okay, does anybody have any questions? And if not, if so, what would they be? And if not, you can make a motion.
What was he referring about something not filled out? Because I didn't notice in the communication we got, I didn't see anything like that.
So there is a fee schedule. It was part of I believe, the documents that you received as well. The actual cost was $27.81. And those charges were filled out under the labor section of that fee schedule.
So was there a section that was not filled out, as he stated? I didn't see one.
No,
He'll tell me.
I'm not sure which section he's referring to. At least the copy that I have, the copy that you have, shows that amount that was filled out for the labor charges, indicating $27.81 for the hourly wage of $18.54 and total time 1.5 hours.
Okay.
Mr. Bodry, you're out of order. Okay.
There are, if I may, there are other sections within the form. The form is a catch-all form. Not all portions of that form we would be filling out, so.
Okay. Just the ones that are relevant to the thing, okay. And the number of hours and the rate per hour is on that form and stated, and it comes to the 27.
You're right. It's basically a calculator,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
Unless there's another part, Mike, that you're. And that was part of all the exhibits that were transmitted to council.
Right. I think what's important to understand is that when a FOIA request is made, the documents have to be looked over to make sure there is nothing on them that needs to be redacted. And it takes time, and staff time costs taxpayers money. And so when you request information, when a citizen requests information, you have a right to that information, but you also have a responsibility to cover the costs of attaining that information. And because of that, I move to deny the appeal.
I'll support.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes?
Allenboss,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mayor Filkins.
Yes, motion carries. All right, so We'll go ahead and open the floor for our first public comment. We do ask that if you come forward to please state your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Terrell Bodery, 406 Stimson. Before I get into the appeal response, I'd like to make a complaint against Hope Thompson for attempting to require I give ID before paying for documents I'd requested, as apparently anyone can pay for anyone's FOIA request. Skipping grammar mistakes, the city semi-correctly states that I stated that a fee cannot be charged because the city failed to identify the nature of the unreasonably high costs. The city then incorrectly states that as a basis, I question why the city cannot afford $28 worth of labor costs when it pays the police officers nearly $2 million every year to write tickets. This is incorrect. The statement of, if the city can't afford $28 in labor it's already paying for, but can afford to pay 17 officers nearly $2 million every year for only 1,000 tickets, where 2 other agencies patrol, there's a problem, came after my argument of 15234 Section 3 and the city policy of VA 7, which you admit to violating in the next paragraph. Quote, the city did indicate by checking the box on the detailed itemization that the failure to charge a fee would result in unreasonably high costs to the city. However, the city did not include specific reasons. End quote. This is contrary to 15234 Section 3. Skipping your non sequitur explanation of block, another grammar mistake, and your non sequitur opinion of the indigency waiver, you finally state the nature of the unreasonably high costs. Essentially, that 1.5 hours of public resources is too much for a FOIA request. I'd agree, especially when it took 1.5 hours to find 4 records or 5 pages that had allegedly been previously requested and didn't complete the request. You then speak on swagger. In your appeal addendum, you cite to Swinger v. City of Ludington. However, the case does not stand for the proposition you cite. To the contrary, the court rules that the city can require payment even if the documents are never accepted. The plaintiff in Swinger made essentially the same argument you are making in your appeal, that only upon acceptance of the documents can the public body charge a fee. This is simply not true, and you're putting words in my mouth. The 2013 plaintiff had chance to review the documents, and after doing so, refused to pay, resulting in the 2015 Swagger case, where they were forced to do so by the court because the request had been fulfilled by the city after attaching documents to a lawsuit response. This differs greatly from the we can require fees before releasing documents of this city. I'd like to FOIA request both copies of that receipt, and that is my time.
Mayor and members of the City Council, may I ask, or not ask, but just advise City Council that there's a proper process for filing a FOIA request. That is not it.
No.
And so, Mr. Bodery, if you wish to request public documents through the Freedom of Information Act, I'd kindly request that you contact our FOIA coordinator, whom I know you have experience communicating with, to go through the proper channels of requesting information. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close public comment and move to the approval of the consent agenda.
Terrell Bodery, 406 Stimson. The flags that were thankfully removed are truly a representation of the writings of George Orwell realized, a symbol of the then-future Kafkaesque dystopian authoritarian state. We could stay in fiction, as Orwell's 1984 was then, but I'd rather stay in reality. Start smaller and go towards larger systemic problems later on. On May 6th, 2020, Ashlynn Lisby was a 23-year-old woman walking on the shoulder, attempting to reach the hotel her and her partner were Marcus, who was with her, were staying at the time. Also on that night, roughly 9:30, 22-year veteran of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, Officer Jonathan Henderson, was on his way to roll call. From all of the fairly bare reporting I've seen, the crash was so violent, the black box activated. Ashlynn died, leaving an oval-shaped indent near the middle of the hood of the patrol car and cracking the windshield, while 8 months pregnant. The child she was carrying was delivered alive via emergency C-section and soon after died. Henderson stated that he was looking in the rearview mirror and did not see Lisby, and the chief of police said that There were some lights out in the area at the time, and that's unfortunate, wearing dark clothes, obviously.
It appears that in that area there were some street lights that weren't working, and that's unfortunate, wearing dark clothes, obviously.
News reports state that the lawsuit Marcus has brought in federal court states that police report allege it was the pedestrian's fault. So for some reason, not driving with lights on after dark, driving while distracted, as the black box would later show, at 33 miles an hour over the posted limit of 45, or 78 miles an hour, makes you ineligible for manslaughter charges, let alone discipline.
He should have got arrested. Because if it was anybody else, they would have definitely got arrested.
An Indianapolis father is speaking out for the first time after his pregnant girlfriend was hit and killed by an IMPD officer. Marcus Lewis filed a wrongful death lawsuit this week, alleging the officer was speeding at the time of the crash. WRTV Investigates Kara Kenny is digging into the complaint, which also alleges the city has yet to discipline the officer.
On May 6th of last year, Marcus Lewis was walking here in the area of Harding Street and 465 on the south side with his pregnant girlfriend, Ashlynn. He says it's a day that changed his life forever.
Marcus Lewis Jr. and the family of Ashlynn have each had to file separate federal lawsuits against Henderson and his department. Marcus having nightmares for over a year after watching the mother of and his child die from a peace officer in a marked cruiser who has yet to face repercussions. Henderson has been on paid administrative leave with mental health services to boot for over a year.
In many cases, when an officer is involved in a fatality, they go on administrative leave during the investigation. Counseling is also available to the officer.
You can read all day about regular people being charged with manslaughter, but when it's a cop, when you know for a fact that they killed someone, it's peace life. And this flag promotes that culture.
The fatal crash here on Harding is the second time in less than 1 month that an IMPD officer has killed a pedestrian with their squad car. That's why the victim's friends and family have a word of warning to police to be careful behind the wheel. In a separate deadly crash in early April, an on-duty IMPD officer driving on the southwest side near Kentucky and Lyndhurst hit and killed another man walking along the road. In that case, police blame the accidental death of Marcel Pulliam on poor visibility due to weather. Jesse Wells, Fox 59 News.
I sincerely hope you have great settlement conversations tonight over Bertram, Hicks, and the federal lawsuit brought against you for what Objepka calls not police brutality. If you truly value or follow your core values and guiding behaviors, you won't have them sign an NDA. Thanks.
Okay, then we're going to need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to closed session to consult with the city attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with Cubitt versus City of Cadillac et al., Western District of Michigan, case number 1:20-CV-01084, Invite Adam Ochepka, Director of Public Safety.
I'll second that.
Councilmember King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Ellenboss?
Yep.
Ingalls? Mayor Filkins?
Yes, motion carries.
On March 30th, 2020, around 2:29 p.m., on the corner of Laurel Street and Pearl Street, 2 Cadillac City police officers were looking for a Cadillac juvenile, age 16, who was accused of pushing his 23-year-old sister down at their father's home near Mitchell Street in downtown Cadillac. The 16-year-old boy leaves his dad's house and walks to his mom's apartment with wet hair, having water thrown on him. He has his hoodie up and earbuds in his ears, playing music. Officer Hicks is the city policeman on foot who is attempting to stop the boy to simply investigate his side of the story. Officer Hicks calls his supervisor on duty, Sergeant Bertram, to assist because the boy is not listening to stop. The sergeant runs a stop sign and pulls in front of the boy with no lights on and no siren on. The sergeant stops his vehicle and jumps out to forcibly take down the walking juvenile from behind. The Sergeant Bertram physically attacks the boy and then forcibly takes him down. He then proceeds to rip back the boy's hoodie while verbally terrorizing the youth. Clearly, the boy's earbuds were in his ears until he was flattened by both officers. They also scratched the boy's face when he struck the ground. The boy's hip was dislocated, and his femur was chipped by the excessive force and unnecessary violent takedown that occurred. A doctor had to give the child morphine at the emergency room to pop the kid's hip back into place. This barbaric act occurred while the child was slowly walking across Pearl Street toward his mother's home. Keep in mind that the child has a right to remain silent and to not be even seized without probable cause under the Constitution. A third officer was just getting the initial details of the complaint from the child's older sister, so these two officers knew very little of what was being reported. All they knew was her side of the story. She was allegedly pushed down by her little brother. Rather than just grab the boy by the arm or just getting in front of him to ask what is going on, unreasonable force and a serious injury resulted to this young man. All continuum of force rules were violated and or skipped over by Sergeant Bertram. Officer Hicks piled on as well, and that didn't help. The boy was grabbed 2 to 3 steps from the curb and was then forcibly pushed and thrown down in the grass over the curb. Unbelievably, the boy was charged with resisting and obstructing a police officer in probate court for these actions seen in this video. The assistant Wexford County prosecutor tried offering to have the child plea bargain to a charge of attempted resisting and obstructing at his first pretrial conference. The juvenile's attorney was provided this video, after weeks of requesting it, at 5 p.m., on the late afternoon of the day before the child's pretrial conference. The child and his father rejected the plea offer for obvious reasons, after also reviewing the video at the 11th hour and reviewing the child's medical records. Wexford County prosecutor, Jason Elmore, appropriately dismissed the resisting and obstructing charge that his office had initiated without the benefit of the video. The dismissal was with prejudice, which means it's dismissed for good. A representative from the Michigan Attorney General's office has reviewed these body cam videotapes and has recommended that the family file a police report for the conduct of these officers. Cadillac Public Safety Director, Adam Otchepka, has been aware of this police conduct since March 30th and only after the child's civil attorney appeared weeks later at a city council meeting to verbally file a complaint and request for discipline, and he started officially looking into what occurred. Weeks after this incident occurred, the public safety director and one city council member were both quoted in the newspaper as saying that we don't have police brutality in this community. When the city police department was accused of wrongdoing in the past, the public safety director held a press conference, released a press release and released a full police video to demonstrate that nothing was done that was improper. On this new matter, there has been no press release, no press conference and no public release of the video. Thank you.
Give me the other hand.
When the police say stop, you stop! You hear that?
I'm serious. I'm not kidding. I swear to God.
With 30.
8115, show you out at 1428.
You were told to stop. Told to stop by the police. Get on the ground. When the police say stop, you stop. You hear that?
I'm serious. I'm not kidding. I swear to God. You guys really, I promise. Please don't move me. I'm begging you.
Stay down on the ground.
Please leave me. Please leave me.
Check him.
Please.
Take a breath, man. Slow, deep breath.
You guys broke my leg.
No, we didn't.
Yes, you did, I swear. I can't move it.
Which leg?
My other one. Not this one. I can't move the other one. I really can't. I heard a snap. Please. Oh my God. Please. Oh my God. It hurts. So,
why didn't you stop and listen to me?
I had my headphones.
Bullshit. I saw you put your head up to your phone. You didn't have anything in your ears.
Look on the floor. My headphone came right there. Oh.
You saw a police car pull right in front of you. That didn't stop you from walking either.
I know.
Clear and right in phase.
How old are you?
16.
Okay.
Yes.
Ingalls, King,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. Marcus?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. At this time, it would be appropriate for City Council to consider a motion to approve settlement of case number 1:20-CV-01084, Cubitt versus City of Cadillac et al., per the terms discussed in closed session, and to authorize the city manager, clerk, and mayor to execute all documents necessary to memorialize the settlement.
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Ellenboss,
Yes.
Ingalls, King,
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes?
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Mayor and members of City Council, related to the motion and action that Council just took, I think it's important that I read this statement aloud to the public. Accordingly, regarding the settlement of the Cubitt versus City of Cadillac case, the city's insurance company made a business decision to settle the dispute to avoid the costs and uncertainty of litigation, and the City of Cadillac and Donald W. Cubitt now have, pursuant to City Council's approval, settled all litigation related to Cubitt versus City of Cadillac, case number 1:20-CV-01084. Not accepting the city's insurance carrier's recommendation could result in limited coverage, which would not be in the city's best interests. Cubitt filed a lawsuit in November 2020 against the City of Cadillac, the City of Cadillac Police Department, and 2 City of Cadillac police officers in their individual and official capacities, seeking damages related to a March 2020 arrest of Cubitt's minor son, Donald B. Cubitt. Under the settlement, Cubitt has agreed to dismiss the lawsuit. The city also has denied any wrongdoing, and settlement does not constitute an admission of liability. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
All right.